What's up, guys? It's your boy B-Boy Johnny 25. Today I'm going to do the greatest game collection of all time as of 2018. So if you guys are new to my channel, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, turn on my notification, and let's get started. The greatest game of all time goes to WWE 2K18 Deluxe Edition of all time. You can see Seth Rollins on the front, and you see Sasha Banks on the back. It says "Be Like No One." One of my favorite games of all time. You know what I'm saying, etc., etc. The greatest game of all time goes to Mortal Kombat XL, one of my favorite games. So and yeah, man, I'm gonna do a gameplay about this. So here's the front of the game, and here's the back of the game. So yeah, front of the game of Sub-Zero, and the back of the game. So good game, by the way. The greatest game game collection of all time goes to Battlefield Hardline. I haven't really played this yet, but here's the front of the game, and here's the back of the game, as you can see right here. So one more time. So here's the front of the game, and here's the back of the game. Good game, by the way. The greatest game of all time goes to Jay Victory Stars Versus. You know what I'm saying? One of my animation favorite games to play with. So and yeah, so here's the front of the game, and here's the back of the game, guys, as we speak. So one more time again, here's the front of the game, and here's the back of the game. One of my favorite games, anime fighting games of all time. The next game I'm going to show you guys, the greatest of all time game goes to Mortal Kombat X. Here's the front of the game, and here's the back of the game. So I'm gonna do this one more time for every game collection I'm about to show you guys. So here's the front of the game, and here's the back of the game. Good game, by the way. The greatest game of all time goes to WWE 2K18, the normal edition. So here's the front of the game of Seth Rollins, and here's the back of the game of Sasha Banks. So front of the game of Seth Rollins of the game, and back of the game of Sasha Banks says "Be Like No One." So good game, by the way. I like the deluxe edition better than the standard edition. Just had to put that out there. The next game collection goes to Tekken 7. You know what I'm saying? One of my favorite games of all time. Here's the front of the game. Here's the back of the game. One more time, guys. So here's the front of the game, and here's the back of the game. One of my favorite games of all time. One of my favorite games of all time goes to Marvel vs. Capcom Infinity. You know what I'm saying? You see all the Marvel vs. Capcom characters on the front, and you see these characters in the back. So Spider-Man, Hulk, and Knight Rider. You know what I'm saying? But here's the front of the game, and here's the back of the game. One of my favorite games of all time. Next game of all time goes to Project Cars 2. You know what I'm saying? Here's the front of the game, guys, and here's the back of the game. So one more time so the whole world can see from the front of the game. Here's the front of the game, and here's the back of the game. One of my favorite games of all time. My favorite game of all time goes to Need for Speed. So here's the front of the game, guys, and here's the back of the game, guys. So one more time for the people to see. So here's the front of the game of Need for Speed, and here's the back of the game for Need for Speed. So one of my favorite games of all time. My favorite game of all time goes to Dragon Ball FighterZ. Here's the front of the game of Goku. I got the Fighters edition. So here's the front of the game of Goku, and here's the back of the game, etc., etc. One more time. So here's the front of the game of Goku, and here's the back of the game. One of my favorite games of all time. My favorite game of all time goes to GTA 5. You know what I'm saying? Here's the front of the game. Here's the back of the game. So as you can see the back of the game, guys. So here's the front of the game. Here's the back of the game. One of my favorite games of all time. The greatest game of all time goes to Dragon Ball Z X Universe 2. Here's Goku on the front, and here's Gohan next to Goku. So front of the game, back of the game. Front of the game, back of the game. One of my favorite all-time greatest games of all time right here. So bear with me. So here it is right here. The greatest game of all time goes to Street Fighter 5 arcade, even though it says Street Fighter 5, but it doesn't matter what make a difference. So here's the front of the game. Here's the back of the game. It says Rise Up. Here's the front of the game of Street Fighter 5, and here's the back of the game. One of my favorite games of all time. The next greatest game of all time goes to NBA 2K18. So here's the front of the game of Kyrie Irving, and here's the back game of Kyrie Irving. So front of the game, back of the game. So one of the greatest games of all time. So yeah. The next greatest game of all time goes to WWE 2K17. One of my greatest games of all time. Here's the front of the game of Brock Lesnar, and here's the back of the game. It says Suplex City. Front of the game right here one more time, and the back of the game. You know what I'm saying? One of my greatest games of all time. The greatest game of all time goes to Drivers Club. As you can see, here's the front of the game, guys. And here's the back of the game. You know what I'm saying? Front of the game, back of the game. That's a little recap, so I did that. The greatest game of all time goes to the Crew. You know what I'm saying? Here's the front of the game of the Crew. Here's the back of the game of the Crew. The front of the game of the Crew, the back of the game of Crew. One of my favorite games of all time. And the greatest game of all time goes to NBA 2K17. Here's the front of the game of Paul George, and here's the back of the game of Paul George. The front of the game of Paul George, and the back of the game of Paul George. So one of the greatest games of all time. The greatest game of all time goes to Injustice 2 Ultimate Edition. You know, so this is one of my favorite games of all time. So here's the front of the game of Batman, and here's the back of the game of Superman. Front of the game of Batman, in front of the game in the back of the game of Superman. One of the greatest games of all time right here. And last but not least, I got a special treat for you guys. I went to GameStop yesterday, and I'm buying here's the game, guys. I'm going to show you guys the greatest number one game of all time goes to and the winner of the game of all time goes to Injustice 2 Legendary Edition. So here's the front of the game of Supergirl, Batman, and Superman. As you in the front, you can see Darkseid, Enchantress, Hellboy, Radiant, Leonardo, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And here's the back of the game. Sub-Zero, Black Manta, Red Hood, the Atom, and Starfire. As you can see the Flash and Reverse Flash, and you can see Swamp Thing goes at it with Wonder Woman. You can see the gear of Batman. You know, it is what it is. So front of the game of Injustice 2 Legendary Edition, as you can see, guys. And here's the back of the game, as you can see right here. So this game is the winner. The winner of the game of the year as of 2018 goes to Injustice 2 Legendary Edition. And yeah, man, one of my favorite games of all time. Good game, by the way. Well, that is it, guys. I'll show you guys my the greatest game collection of all time as of 2018. So you guys, if you guys enjoyed my video, please give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below what you guys think. And before I end this video, I also want to give a shout out to Coltrane, Cam, Thomas Rogers, Sammy Logic, Lane Hanson and her boyfriend, and K9 J and Crypto. You know what I'm saying? All the YouTubers, man, shout out to you guys. So this your boy, Big Boy Johnny. See you guys in the next video.